Franken
Tune
Franken
Tune
Studio.
Hello and welcome. This is Enrique from Franken Studio. Today, I'm gonna show you my process for sketching portraits using color and bold shapes in Affinity Designer. Since we'll be working with raster brushes, this workflow also works perfectly in Affinity Photo. The goal of this exercise is to experiment with quick shape and color studies, nothing too precious, just expressive, fast sketching. The pack I'll be using is called Nomad for Affinity. So let's get started. I start blocking out the main head shape, along with features like the neck and ears, using a brush called El Nómada. Before jumping into the painting, I like to limit my color palette to just a few tones, similar to how I work with real paint. In this case, I choose a neutral mid-tone for the base of the head, and then pick one lighter color and one darker color to start defining values. This keeps things simple and helps maintain a painterly feel right from the start. With the brush flat in canvas, I begin carving out the facial structure, laying down big shapes and adding shadows and highlights to understand the subject's bone structure. Once I've built the face shapes, I switch to the dry details brush to sketch out smaller features like eyes, lips, ears, nose, and eyebrows. When sketching these details, I try to use as few strokes as possible. At this stage, we're just mapping out the subject's traits, not rendering every little nuance. I also avoid zooming in too much, since that tends to break the flow and pulls me into unnecessary details too early. Then, using the fuzzy details brush, I start adding highlights. This one behaves a bit like a semi-round bristle brush. It's great for bringing in soft texture. To soften some of harsh strokes, I grab Vieux Lion, which is great for hard blending. This brush responds to stylus pressure. Light pressure gives you a soft, grainy texture, while firmer pressure lays down thicker, painterly strokes. For the background, I use pure pigment brush to quickly fill in a solid color. It has less texture and more paint than El Nómada, making it ideal for blocking shapes or creating a clean base. I also use the background to fine-tune the silhouette of the subject's head, basically sculpting the outer edges using the same background color. Once I'm happy with the overall shape, I add her eyes and specular highlights using an almost pure white tone to help her expression pop. Then I begin painting the hair. I usually work on this part in a separate layer so I can test a few options without affecting the rest of the piece. Sketching portraits, or anything really, zooming in too much or relying on dozens of layers can pull you out of the flow. The goal is to capture quick ideas, color studies, and bold forms without overthinking. I keep the layer count as low as possible, treating a canvas like traditional media where you don't have layers to hide behind. This helps me focus on the big picture, fix mistakes on the fly, and let shapes and colors mix naturally. Working this way also helps maintain spontaneity and energy in the piece. To finish off this portrait, I'm switching to Affinity Photo for Mac to add a few final touches. But before we close, I want to emphasize something important. Not every sketch needs to be beautiful or perfectly polished. Sketching is about playing around, exploring new ideas, and developing your visual instincts without pressure. That's why I love doing simple studies like this, especially with our Nomad brushes for Affinity. They behave a lot like dry wash or acrylic paint with no blending capabilities. This forces you to think more clearly about shape, value, and stroke placement. You're painting with intention using solid colors and sharp edges. It's fantastic practice for controlling your brushwork and developing confidence in your decisions. So, give yourself permission to experiment, mess up, and enjoy the process. That's where the good stuff happens. Thank you for watching.
Franken,
Tune,
Franken,
tune,
Franken,
tune,
Franken,
tune,
Franken,
tune,
Franken.
tune.